Hello, and thank you for joining the Aspen Pump product training. The agenda for today is laid out here as understanding ductless and VRF or VRV equipment and mini pumps. We'll talk some about application. We'll go through the product overview. We'll give a little bit of information on target customers. We'll talk about our key competitors, a little bit about competitive positioning, why we're better, and some objections to overcome. So first, what exactly is a mini split or a VRF or VRV unit? So on the left-hand side of the screen, you see a traditional mini split 1-to-1, one indoor unit to one outdoor unit. And what you see there is what we call a traditional high wall unit. This is the majority of what we're going to be talking about today with the use of Aspen pumps. On the right-hand side, you'll see our VRF or VRV equipment. Just a quick note on the differentiation between VRV and VRF is variable refrigerant flow and VRV is variable refrigerant volume. There's no real difference between the two, except that Daikin uses VRV and everyone else uses VRF. So for today's discussion, if you hear me use one or the other, I'm using them interchangeably. That picture on the right-hand side shows what might be a typical commercial installation. That's kind of how we identify VRV versus mini split. Mini split on the left is typically a residential or light commercial application with one indoor unit to one outdoor unit, although some units may have 2 indoors or 3 indoor units to one outdoor unit. On the right-hand side, you see what might be a VRF machine with 4 different types of indoor units or heads. The 2 we're going to focus on today are the high wall unit here directly above the unit and the ceiling cassette there on the top right of that picture. So continuing on what exactly is a mini split and how does it differ from a unitary system, looking at the picture on the left, you can see there's still an outdoor unit and there is an indoor unit, but the indoor unit is connected to each space or zone by ductwork. The picture on the right explains what a ductless system is. You still have an indoor unit here and an outdoor unit there, but they are connected by line sets, control wire, and condensate management. The difference is you will have an indoor unit like a high wall or a ceiling cassette in each of the spaces that you're trying to heat or cool. So people often ask, what exactly is a mini condensate pump and how is it different from a tank pump or a traditional condensate pump? Well, an Aspen mini pump is very small and it's designed to work intermittently and rapidly move small amounts of condensate great distances while maintaining a low noise level. There's a couple of different factors you have to consider when choosing a mini pump or differentiating a mini pump from a traditional tank pump. And the first thing we need to be concerned with is size. Mini pumps are just a fraction of the size of a tank pump. Tank pump, think of the size of a shoebox, whereas a mini pump might be 6 inches long and 2 inches by 2 inches wide and tall. The other consideration is that mini pumps are designed, their size is designed to work specifically with ductless and VRF systems. Oftentimes there's not a lot of room inside the back of a high wall unit where many times we'll place a pump, so it does have to be small and slender to fit those tight spaces. The second consideration is noise. Mini pumps are designed to operate at a very low sound level compared to tank pumps. Tank pumps are typically going to operate somewhere around 45 decibels, where Aspen pumps are as quiet as 19 decibels. Typically, the human male cannot hear anything below about 20 decibels, so 19 is quite acceptable. Then we have to talk about performance. Tank pumps are capable of moving tremendous amount of water, 132 gallons per hour, while Aspen pumps can move between about 3 or 8 gallons per hour, depending upon if you choose a mini or a maxi pump. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Tank pumps on the other hand, can only typically discharge water either 16 or 22 feet. Those are the two typical standards in the tank pump segment of this business, while mini pumps can pump 33 feet and our maxi pumps up to 50 feet. And then cost. Tank pumps are very, very inexpensive compared to a mini pump. They're very simple machines. The mini pump is a much more engineered product, requires much tighter tolerances, and therefore drives the cost up. So that would beg the question, if we can buy a tank pump for a third of the price and it moves a lot more water, why would anyone ever buy a mini pump? Well, because that unit right there above the couch has a pump inside of it, and it's a very clean and sleek look, and people will accept that. And there over the mantle, same thing. There's a pump in that that's pumping away the condensate being produced, and no one's the wiser. It looks nice. Okay. We also have a nice example of a ceiling cassette, and you can even see that in a posh doctor's office. It's still a nice, clean look. What people don't want to see is something like this. This is a real picture that I took in Times Square, New York, in a pizzeria. This is obviously a contractor who doesn't care or doesn't know about the proper installation practices. Although functional, not very aesthetically pleasing. We also don't want to see things like this. These next two pictures I'll talk about are both at a Kroger grocery store at the very front of the store at the service counter. And this is also a side effect of some of our competitors. This particular picture here is a Sauerman. The next pump I'm going to show you is a Blue Diamond pump. And these are both on Mitsubishi machines. Those two companies are very small and lack the ability to do training and resources to help contractors understand how they should be installing product. The big takeaway here is that these both are on the next picture, and this one here are both Mitsubishi machines. And the average consumer just looking at that for the first time would never accept that if that was being proposed to place in their home, because that's the picture they have. They're also tying the quality of that install back to Mitsubishi, so it detracts from the good name of Mitsubishi. So across the way that we have this guy here, a completely inappropriate installation, but this is real life, guys. The other thing to note here is that Blue Diamond pump. This is one of the pumps that's supported by Mitsubishi. And as you can see, for a residential or light commercial application, that pump is never going to work in this application. You'll never fit it inside the back of the unit. It's going to have to go in a remote location. We'll talk about that in a little more detail as we get to the product applications. So speaking of product applications, when exactly do we use an Aspen pump? Well, your first answer is not on unitary equipment. As most of you should be aware, almost all unitary equipment today is built into the plans of the structure at the time the structure is being built. And all the necessary condensate drain lines are installed well before that structure is completed. The equipment for unitary might be installed in an attic or a basement, some kind of room or closet, the roof, or someplace dedicated for HVAC equipment. But any of those applications will have a provision to manage the condensate. Here's a couple of examples of a typical unitary condensate option. So on the left-hand side, we see a 3-port pan. The bottom left is your primary drain line. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. Pardon me there. Not sure if you can see my mouse here, but this here is your primary drain line. So the condensate drips off of the coil, drips into a pan, and then it flows out of this port here. And then this line would then be typically tied into some type of plumbing drain inside the building or structure. Here we have a secondary port, and here with this red cap, we have a third port that's just capped off. This secondary port has a rector seal safety switch SS2, which if for some reason this primary line gets plugged, water will then flow into the secondary port, raise the float inside the safety switch, and the way that it's wired would allow the switch to shut the power down to the indoor unit and stop condensate production. to avoid an overflow situation, so we don't have water flowing over the edge of the pan and into the attic or down the wall or inside the home or building somewhere. On the right-hand side, we have a hybrid approach. It has a lot of safety features. So this particular drain line here is your primary drain line. Again, this would be typically plumbed somewhere inside the structure to some type of plumbing drain. Then we have a secondary drain line here. If this primary drain line were to get plugged, water would then flow out here into this pan. And then there is a drain line, a primary drain line for the secondary pan here. If for some reason that got plugged up, the water would rise up to the edge of the pan where our AquaGuard switch would then notify the system and shut it down. So when exactly do we use an Aspen pump? We use Aspen pumps on mini splits and VRF units. Mini split units are primarily installed in non-traditional spaces. Applications can include cabins, sunrooms, a garage, and often they are used as replacement for failed unitary systems. Mini splits are not usually thought of during the planning or build-out stage, so there's not always an obvious condensate management solution. So that's why we need pumps from time to time, or to get creative with the drain lines. So this particular application is very typical, where you have an outdoor unit, and again, it's connected to the indoor unit via line set or refrigerant lines. There's some control wire in there, and there's some type of condensate management. For this discussion, we'll say there's a mini Aqua Aspen pump inside the back of this unit. And again, the difference being that in this situation, you might have this outdoor unit feeding this indoor unit here in what appears to be a family room kitchen combo. That's your bedrooms, and maybe an office or another great room might have more of these types of indoor high wall units. Now, oftentimes, high wall units are installed on an outside wall so that they can expel the condensate directly outdoors. And that's what we see in this application here. So your indoor unit, as it draws in warm air and expels cold air, creates condensation. That condensation would build up in the drain pan, and then in this situation would just simply follow a drain line. It would go outside and drip here in the garden, in some rocks, grass, and this is, of course, as local code allows. Aspen pumps are used to allow the indoor unit to be installed on the wall that's most conducive to the performance of the AC system and to meet the aesthetic needs of the environment or the client. So oftentimes, the contractor will only offer this outside wall application. But if the guy behind him, the contractor behind him comes in to give a bid, that contractor may be comfortable putting pumps in and would offer the client any wall they want at a little bit additional cost of installation labor and a pump. So I always challenge contractors that the ones who have learned how to install Aspen pumps with confidence can offer more installation options and set themselves apart from those contractors that are not that well versed. When we don't install a mini split properly, we don't manage the condensate drain lines or Aspen pumps, this is what you can get. You can get leaks coming down the wall. These are two very, very minor examples of what can happen when you don't have that condensate management set up properly. I've seen many, many worse applications. So, underneath this high wall unit, there might be hardwood floors or antique furniture or expensive electronics. So it's very important to get this right. Now, taking a look at the products, the product specifications that really set Aspen apart is that Aspen has products specifically designed for use with ductless mini split and VRF equipment. Some of our competitors have products that were used for some other application, and they just simply adapted them the best they could to work with this type of equipment. Because Aspen makes pumps specifically for ductless mini split removal, they also offer the largest offering with 6 different styles of pumps. We'll go through each of them in a little bit, but we have pumps that mount to the wall underneath the unit. We have pumps that go inside the unit. We have pumps that go in a drop ceiling above the unit or a remote location, and pumps that go off to the side of the unit in some trunking. All Aspen pumps include overflow protection that, when wired properly, if the pump is not capable of keeping up with the condensate being produced, the pump will shut the indoor unit down. Every Aspen pump includes everything needed for a complete install, whether it's Velcro tape to hold down the reservoir, screws to hold down the pump body itself to the wall, everything needed, with the exception of the discharge tubing, which is field supplied and is always 1/4-inch ID tubing. One of the big takeaways from today is that most Aspen pumps are available with the industry-exclusive Univolt. Univolt pumps can accept voltage inputs from 100 to 250 and everywhere in between. The board will self-modulate, so as there might be dips or spikes in the voltage, the pump controls will manage that, and the pump will deliver consistent performance. Most Aspen pumps are also fully potted. If you're not familiar with potting, potting is a process by where, after the pump is assembled inside the plastic housing, before the final cover goes on, the cavity of the pump is completely filled with potting epoxy, which dries hard. This allows for protection against water egress into the pump and the electronic circuitry of the pump, and it also helps manage some of the vibration. I mentioned earlier that the pump operates at a very low sound level, which is true, but the pump does vibrate, and you can get some vibration transfer, and that potting helps absorb some of that. Just as an FYI, Aspen pumps are powered from the indoor unit. So whatever that indoor unit, and that indoor unit is powered from the outdoor unit. So whatever voltage supply is being supplied to the indoor unit will also be what voltage supply is supplied to the pump. And another key takeaway for today is talking about our best practices. We'll touch on that a little more at the end. But if you take anything away today, when someone asks you about installing the pump, you want to tell them always install the ASD, the anti-siphon device, install the fuse link, which are both included in the box, and only ever use 1/4-inch ID tubing. All of these things are mentioned in the best practices. And then final piece on this slide here is the right-hand side is a picture of our Defy Gravity poster. This poster is available free of charge for any contractor or any distributor that wants to hang it in their place of business. Again, it gives an idea of the pumps we have and what their intended application might be. Moving on to the pumps themselves. Here is our Mini White. This is the most popular pump in North America across all brands. As you'll see that this pump reflects 43% of Rector Steel's mini pump business. This pump here is designed to mount directly to the wall below the unit, adjacent to the bottom of the unit, and it can go on the left-hand side or the right-hand side without any need for configuration change. A couple of our competitors do make products that mount to the wall under the unit also, but if you want to switch them from a left-hand to a right-hand or vice versa application, then you have to actually disassemble the pump body and the reservoir and swap them around. The Mini White is very easy. Just slide it to the left or the right and mount it. The Mini White comes in a very neutral white color, which blends well with all the AC units out there. It has the largest reservoir available of all pumps, which means it will run much less frequently, which is a little bit important because any surface mount pump is going to tend to be louder because it's in the occupied space. So if we can run less frequently, then we have an advantage. The Mini White is suitable for AC units up to 4 tons. The 4-ton claim on this sheet and all the rest that we're going to talk about today is, of course, based on head. Head is the vertical distance the pump will be pumping. So as the higher the head goes, the lower the performance of the pump in terms of tons is concerned. Now, this pump is still capable of pumping 10 or 15 feet and operating on a 36,000 BTU unit or a 3-ton unit. The sweet spot for high wall units is somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to 24,000 BTUs. So we typically are going to not have any trouble. And I would say that the Mini White is good for roughly 80% of applications out there. The Mini White is a univolt pump. It only comes in one SKU. And again, that univolt will allow voltage inputs from 100 all the way up to 250 and self-modulate everywhere in between. And like I mentioned, it is 43% of the Rector Seal business in the mini pump category. Moving on to our number 2 pump, the Mini Aqua. The Mini Aqua has a fantastic slender design, which is designed to be concealed inside the unit. It can fit, because it's long and slender, it allows the pump to be installed in the types of applications. So when you have the line sets that come out of one side of the mini split and they cross all the way across the back before going out the penetration in the wall, then you would have opportunity to place the Mini Aqua in line with those line sets. It's the only pump of its size. There's nothing this small that has this much performance, and there's none other pump that can be installed in these super tight applications. Now, the pump is directional. There's an inlet side and a discharge side, and there are arrows marking that on the pump. This pump can be installed in any orientation as long as the discharge side of the pump is level or pointing upward. So again, people ask me all the time, is it orientation specific? Not as long as it's pumping flat or uphill is the quick answer. This pump does operate around 20 decibels, again, which is very, very quiet, not audible to most humans. But again, the pump mechanism itself can make some vibration. And so simply by using good common sense and using some insulation materials such as Armorflex, you can usually quiet any vibration transfer. The Mini Aqua does have plug-and-play cables, so coming off the pump, you'll have about 5 inches of cable with a plug, and those 2 plugs will plug into, one will go to the power, and one will go to the reservoir. We do this so that for versatile installation options. You can place the pump where it needs to go, and then you can route the wires to the terminal block of the indoor unit to wire it up. Or you can wire it up first and then route the cables to the pump. Just gives a little added flexibility in installation. Again, the Mini Aqua is also suitable for up to 4 tons based on head or vertical distance of pumping. As you can see, the Mini Aqua is responsible for about 29% of Rector Seal's mini pump business. So as you can see, between the Mini White and the Mini Aqua, that takes up the lion's share of the sales of pumps. But we do have several others to talk about. So now we're going to talk about the Mini and the Maxi Orange. The Mini Orange is a great pump. It was one of the first pumps introduced on the market, and it was the first pump introduced by Aspen. But over time, they introduced the Mini Aqua, which has about the same performance specs, but it is a little easier from an installation standpoint. So we're seeing quite a few sales migrate from the Orange to the Aqua. However, this is the first pump we've talked about. I alluded to it much earlier in the presentation, that this is the first pump we talked about that is available in a Maxi. So as the name would indicate, the pump is larger, but it also is a little bit more noisy. Both the Mini and the Maxi Orange have a power plug that's at the pump as opposed to pigtails, but this is still okay. This pump is fully potted, and at the terminal inside the pump, there's a sealing plate. So even if it was to get splashed with water or a little bit of debris was in there, it's not going to go far and can be easily cleaned out. Some of our competitors that have a port at the pump, when you remove the plug, you have access to inside the pump. So any dirt, debris, or water that gets in there will make contact with the board and has opportunity to damage the internal workings of the pump. Coming back to the Maxi, as you can see that the Mini, again, is suitable for 4 tons, but the Maxi is suitable for up to 13 tons. Again, these are both rated based on the head of the discharge run. We do have available at rectorseal.com charts It will identify the available BTU that the pump is capable of working with based on the different head requirements. These are good charts when you're not sure if the pump is going to work. And then rounding out the top three, the orange, the complete line of orange represents 22% of Rector Seal's mini pump business. Moving into the first of our truly specialized products is our Mini and Maxi line. These pumps are designed for installations on a non-penetrable wall, where the line sets are going to come down from a drop ceiling, typically, and enter the unit from the side. The Mini and the Maxi line come in complete pump kits, which allow the concealment of the actual line sets, the control wire, condensate management, and they actually house the pump. Again, they're available in both a Mini and a Maxi, and the kit includes everything needed, including the line set cover, the elbow to house the pump, the couplers to connect the pieces of line set to both the ceiling and the unit. Again, these are suitable for 4-ton units on the Mini and up to 13 tons on the Maxi, and most of the Mini line product is available in a univolt. The Line series only makes up about 2.5% of the Rector Seal business. And our Mini tank pump. The Mini tank pump is designed for use with sealing cassettes, specifically to work with sealing cassettes. It has multiple inlet ports, so you can see the yellow tab on the top of the pump. That's your primary inlet port, but it does have 2 others on the sides of the pump, and also, and these are in the form of knockout panels. So you just knock out the little plastic tab that's in there, and then you could attach your tubing to that. And then also it has one on the bottom, so it can actually be set inside a drain pan. A few of the drawbacks here is that the Mini tank pump is only available in a 230 volt application, which will accept 208 to 230. And it's only available as a Maxi pump, so it's going to be a little noisier than our Mini pumps. But that shouldn't be that big of a consideration because it is designed to work with a ceiling cassette, so it would be installed above a drop ceiling or in an attic of some kind. So you have some insulation there from noise. It does have a large reservoir, which is suitable to work in conjunction with the built-in cassette pump. So most ceiling cassettes have a small lift pump that's capable of lifting water out about 24 inches. This is really designed just to get the condensate up and over the top of the unit so it can be pumped into a primary drain line of some kind. There's not always a primary drain line available, so the Mini tank pump is a perfect option to have that lift pump right into the tank pump. A word of caution: if you try to use a Mini pump with a Mini reservoir, oftentimes you'll have to extend the discharge tubing about 5 feet between the unit and the reservoir itself. Otherwise, the flow of water coming out of the unit is too great and will swamp the reservoir, the small reservoir of our Mini pumps. So therefore, this Mini tank pump having a larger reservoir is the perfect application. Now, what we've seen is, because this is a Maxi and it's suitable for up to 13 tons, we've often seen where there might be 4 or 6 1-ton units serving a large area in a business, for instance. And what we see is we use the Mini tank pump as a central point of distribution for the condensate. So all 6 or 8 of those units might pump into this Mini tank pump, and then allow the Mini tank pump to pump up again as high as 50 feet. Now, this Mini tank pump is a niche market, and it's only less than 1% of Rector Seal's total pump business. And then rounding out the pumps for the Aspen lineup is our peristaltic. Now, every pump we've talked about so far is a piston pump. The piston does require the presence of the cold condensate water to cool and lubricate that piston, because the piston does move quite rapidly. The peristaltic acts more like an IV machine, where you have a centropene tube and a rotor with 2 balls making contact with the tube. This creates suction and discharge. The peristaltic pump is designed for very heavy-duty applications, such as industrial or in institutional type environments. Whereas most of the pumps, all the pumps we spoke about previously, all require water to flow into a reservoir, which lifts a float, and the float is what activates the pump. This peristaltic pump is activated by temperature probes. Because it is not a piston pump, it does not require the presence of condensate water to run. It can run dry with no damage. The kit includes tubing and the mounting bracket, everything that you need except for discharge tubing. And it's able to pump very dirty water with large debris. This guy's suitable for use on AC systems up to 3 tons, but again, it reflects less than 1% of the RectorSeal business. Our target customers are pretty simple. All distributors selling ductless and VRF equipment. Okay, that's a high majority of them these days. But don't overlook our bid spec reps. Bid spec reps are usually the guys that are bidding on the large commercial jobs. And this offers a unique opportunity for Aspen Pumps to be specified. And it's not uncommon to see bid spec reps turn in quotes or requests for quote for jobs of 250 plus pumps for a single job. So we can get a lot of traction here. And then, of course, our ductless and VRF or VRV OEMs. So these would be our manufacturers, Mitsubishi and Daikin and LG, Samsung. We have varying relationships with these guys, Daikin probably being at the top of the food chain with they buy a full complement of our products and resell them out to their CODs, their company-owned distribution stores, and their independents. And then we have other relationships with guys like LG who don't buy anything from us, but will absolutely endorse Aspen Pumps. If you visit most any training center across the United States of any manufacturer, you are likely to find a plethora of RectorSeal products, including Aspen Pumps. So we get a nice endorsement from most of the OEM manufacturers. When it comes to competitors, of course, in the mini pump space, RectorSeal is the market leader with about 50% share. Around the second spot is Sauermann. Sauermann, we think, has about 15 to 20% of the market share. Their flagship pump is the SI30, although in the last couple of years they introduced the SI20, which is more like a mini aqua style pump, and an Omega pack, which is like our mini white. Their go-to-market strategy is with low prices. It's not uncommon to see an SI30 in the marketplace for $68 to the distributor, and they also have very quiet operation. Now, this quiet operation, I would say, does apply to the SI30. The SI30 pumps pretty quietly, but I know that the performance specs stated for the SI20 and the Omega pack are grossly understated compared to what the pumps actually produce in the form of sound. Also, Diversitech is in this space. They have a roughly 10 to 15% of the market share. Their flagship pump is the Clearview Mini, although they do have the CPM 115 and 230, which are cheaper products. Their big claim is the bundle, and they absolutely leverage that bundle. And by bundle, I mean they have a lot of products to offer, just like RectorSeal does. And when I talk about leveraging their program, we all know that Diversitech does very well in the pad space, and a lot of their rebate programs tied back to pad performance. And they also negotiate that other products will have to be included to earn that pad rebate. So they get some pull through because of that. Blue Diamond is also a relative newcomer to the pump market. They have about 10 to 15% of the share, and they came on the market with their Maxi and their Mega Blue. You saw the Maxi Blue on that picture at the Kroger grocery store on that Mitsubishi unit. So the Maxi and the Megas are very large pumps. They're very heavy, and they're not suitable at all for residential applications. Their newer pump is the Micro Blue, which was developed to compete with the Mini Aqua pump. A note on the Micro Blue, and we have some documentation on this, is that the Micro Blue is only suitable for 18,000 BTUs or a ton and a half. And that is at 4 inches of head. When you get up to only 5 feet of head, that pump then is only capable of operating on 5,000 BTUs or less than a half a ton. Their big claim to fame is that their pump operation is different than everybody else's, and it is. It's a hybrid type of pump, and it does have, in fact, have quiet operation. A couple of things we've noted over the last couple of years watching these pumps is that their pump operation can fail with dirty condensate, and these pumps do in fact get louder the longer they're in operation. Refco has a market share of about 10 to 15%. Their two primary products nowadays are the Gobi 2 and the Combi. The Gobi 2 is a mini white style undermount, and the Combi is a slender pump more like the Mini Aqua, although it's larger. Their claim is that they have innovation in their product performance and quiet operation. And just like we saw on the Blue Diamond, we do see these pumps failing after a little bit of time in the field and getting much noisier as time goes on. And then rounding out our competitive positioning for pumps is Little Giant, less than 5% market share. Their big product on the market is EC1 and EC400. These are both very inexpensive products, but they're very inexpensive, so they have that low price contractor in mind. They're also easy to purchase because you can bundle them with your tank pump business from Little Giant. When looking at competitive positioning, it's important to remember that at RectorSeal, we have the Aspen Pump, which is the #1 selling brand in the U.S. RectorSeal offers unrivaled support in the form of technical support folks, pump specialists, and so on. Aspen Pumps are sold and supported in the United States by RectorSeal and are among the highest priced pumps on the market. But the Aspen Pump name is synonymous with quality and are backed by one of the best vendors a distributor could have. Also, RectorSeal has the ability to bundle purchases to maximize the total spend with RectorSeal. So whether you have a big guy or a small guy, they can add 1 pump or 100 pumps to the products that they're already buying from RectorSeal. Now we'll take a look at a few things of why we think we're better. So first of all, our distributor customers are going to deal with RectorSeal, which is a very large U.S.-based company. Some of the competitors in this space are very, very small, in some cases less than 5 employees in the entire United States. That doesn't do a lot to go towards their ability to support big distributors and contractors. RectorSeal through the Aspen line offers a lot of application-specific choices. So whether you want to mount it under the unit or in the unit or in a wall void or a remote application, we have a pump for you. We're the only ones with the Univolt technology of 100 to 250. We talked about that. And then we also have industry-leading support. We have top-notch rep agencies throughout the country. All of our regional managers have been very well trained on Aspen Pumps. Our tech support team, 4 full-time tech support guys that are there to answer questions about Aspen Pumps, and a mini pump specialist. We talked about the ability to bundle products, but also at RectorSeal.com, you can find equipment-specific wiring diagrams through our Fast Find Pump Fix. We also have the market-leading brands, and we have strong OEM relationships to help prop up the endorsement of the Aspen Pumps. When it comes to RectorSeal Advantage, we have a ton of supporting documents. A couple of the 2 biggest things that we have are the Aspen Pump Selection Guide. This guide will help identify the right pump for the specific application. The guide offers technical features and a paragraph on the pump for what it was intended to be used with. Each pump also has a benefit or a tagline. So for instance, the Mini White there, this is the easiest to install and easiest to maintain. This is a very valuable tool for folks that don't know the entire lineup of Aspen pumps or don't know why we have specific pumps in the lineup. Another fantastic supporting document is our best practices. The best practices are a practical installation guide designed to help the installer do all the right things and avoid the mistakes that can cause poor performance and premature pump failure. The best practices cover all kinds of situations, including wiring and siphoning and maintenance. The best practices are available, one specifically for the Mini White and one that covers the Aqua and the Orange, and they're both available at RectorSeal.com. And then overcoming objections. Most of this we've already talked about and can be found in the best practices, but difficulty to install. A lot of guys, contractors, are not familiar with how to install a pump, so it's very confusing the first time out of the box. If they read the best practices and get a wiring diagram from us, it makes it much, much easier to install. Common objections also include noisy. Pumps, and this applies really to the next couple, the poor performance and the premature failure, but pumps had a bad rap when they first came out, and they kind of deserved it. The technology was new. The pumps were very, very finicky, but we've come a very long way with pumps. Like I mentioned, the pump itself does not make a tremendous amount of noise. It's usually the vibration that's being transferred. So there's a section in the best practices about managing vibration. Again, poor performance. As you saw, that these pumps are capable of pumping 33 or 50 feet vertical distance. As long as the pump is maintained and installed properly, your performance is going to be steady and fantastic. Premature failure comes from poor installations. If we don't install the anti-siphon device, if we don't install the fuse, which we covered very early in the presentation, or we have discharge tubing that is compromised somewhere down the line. All these things can cause premature failure, and they're all covered in the best practice. And then finally, we always have a price objection. I think that's on any presentation, objections are always going to include price. But I would say this is that the old adage, you get what you pay for, kind of comes into play here. The price of the Aspen pump is a bit more in some cases than our competitors. But when you tally up the support, the longevity of the pumps, the quality of the pumps, typically price is a pretty easy thing to overcome. So that is all I have today. I'd like to thank everybody for joining. And if I can ever help anybody again, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you very much.